People call our school a battlefield. They're not wrong. You learn fast that teachers don't run this place. Fists do. Every hallway smells like sweat and iron, and every conversation starts with a glance to see who's standing behind you. Me? I keep to the edges. I walk straight, speak little, make grades high enough that even the gangs use my notes. The trick is to look like glass, transparent enough to be invincible, sharp enough to cut when touched. That worked for a while, until it didn't. Started on a Monday, the kind where the sky looks like wet concrete. I was halfway through lunch when 3 of them came. Big, loud, slow. The kind that believe muscle makes law. Hey, top student. Heard you got the teacher to cancel detention for Kim Soo-jin. You think you're some kind of genius? One said, kicking my desk. I looked up. No, just smarter than the teacher, I said. The class went quiet. You could almost hear their jaws lock. He didn't get it, that I wasn't trying to insult him. I was just telling the truth. He grabbed my collar, breath thick with cheap cigarettes. You think you're funny? No, I said again. That earned me a punch to the cheek. I took it, didn't flinch. Pain is easy when you expect it. They wanted a reaction. I gave them silence. That's how you win the first round. Make them guess what game they're playing. After school, I didn't go straight home. I waited. I knew they'd follow. Predictability is a pattern, and patterns are puzzles. The old gym was perfect. Broken lights, echoing floor, just enough space to trap rats. I'd already loosened the back door hinge last week, just in case. I didn't know why. Maybe I always expect trouble. They came in laughing. Smart boy hiding in the dark? I said nothing. They spread out, trying to corner me. I stepped back slowly, counting under my breath 3 steps, 2, 1. Then kicked the side beam I'd wedged loose. It swung down hard, catching one of them on the shoulder. He screamed. The other 2 froze. Rule 1. Don't assume the quiet ones are weak, I said. The second one rushed me. I ducked, used his weight, drove my elbow into his ribs. When he hit the ground, I picked up his drop chain. Rule 2. Think before you move, I said. The last one stared, breathing hard, like he couldn't understand how this turned upside down. You crazy bastard, he said. Maybe, or maybe I just know how to solve problems, I said. He ran. The one with the broken shoulder limped out after him, swearing. I stood there for a while, breathing through the ache in my jaw. The trap worked. The system worked. Logic over strength. The next morning, everyone stared like I'd grown a second head. The glass student rumor had become a wildfire. I could feel it in the way the halls quieted when I passed, like people were waiting to see if I'd explode again. I didn't. I walked, silent as usual. But something in the air had changed. Power shifts are quiet at first, like gravity deciding to lean a different way. When I reached my locker, someone had written "Brain Brawler" in marker across the door. Not an insult, not praise either, just a challenge. And I already knew who left it. Hanul was waiting at the end of the hall. He wasn't pretending to hide his grin. A split lip, half-healed from some other fight, curved up like a dare. He tilted his head toward the roof exit. Got a minute? The crowd parted like they'd rehearsed it. Nobody told Hanul no. I didn't either. The rooftop was gray with morning fog. He lit a cigarette, leaned on the railing, and looked me over like he was trying to see how I worked. So, you made quite the mess yesterday, he said, smoke curling around his voice. I cleaned it up, I said. He laughed, low, sharp, genuine. You call cracking someone's shoulder cleaning up? They started it. And you finished it. Coldly, too. You don't even look proud. He flicked the cigarette, eyes narrowing. I'm not. Then what are you? I met his gaze. Nothing. That got him. His grin widened. You talk like you're only solving math problems and nothing else. I'm only into studying, not fighting. He pushed off the railing, closing the distance between us. There was something reckless about the way he moved, like even standing still took effort. You really think brains beat fists? I think fists are predictable. He chuckled, voice rough. Predict this, then. His hand shot forward before I could blink. He grabbed my collar and shoved me against the concrete wall. It didn't hurt, not yet, but it was a test and I understood the language. He was faster, stronger, but not smarter. I didn't fight back right away. I let him talk. Everyone's wondering who'd win, the king or the glass. He said. And you? I asked quietly. I think you're too calm for your own good. Maybe calm is what scares you. That made him pause. I saw it. A flicker of something behind his eyes, curiosity tangled with frustration. He didn't like not knowing what I'd do next. Then he shoved me harder. Let's see who's right. The fight wasn't elegant. None of them ever are. He swung first, fast, deliberate but not wild. He was testing distance, speed, control. I dodged, blocked, countered once. My hits landed, but barely slowed him down. Hanul fought like a storm, loud, full-bodied, a rhythm of rage and grace. I fought like I was cutting through equations, measure, strike, retreat. For a moment, I thought I could read him completely. Then he surprised me. A faint left pivot and his elbow caught my ribs. The world blinked white. Pain spidered through my side. I hit the ground hard, air knocked out of me. He stood over me, panting, sweat running down his neck. Still think fists are predictable? I forced a breath. Yours weren't. He laughed, breathless. You talk like you didn't just lose. Lose? Your shoelaces been undone for 5 minutes. You've been stepping wrong since your third punch. I smirked, pointing behind him. He looked down instinctively, enough of a flinch for me to twist up, hook my leg around his and drag him down. We both hit the ground, rolling, his arm pinning mine, my knee digging into his side. When we stopped, his face was inches from mine, our breaths crossing like sparks. His voice was lower now. You're insane. Maybe. Or maybe I just don't like losing. His grip loosened just a fraction. I could have taken advantage, but I didn't. Something about the moment felt too charged to break. The air between us was heavy, tense, like the pause between lightning and thunder. He smirked again. You think too much, and you don't think enough. Maybe that's why this is interesting. The word interesting lingered longer than it should have. Then he pushed himself up, brushing dirt off his sleeves. He looked at me like I'd just proven something he hadn't expected. You're not like them, you don't swing unless you mean it, he said finally. I don't have time for meaningless fights. Good, because this one wasn't meaningless. He started walking toward the door. Halfway there, he turned. Next time, don't hold back, glass student. I wasn't holding back. He grinned over his shoulder. Then I'm just better. Maybe he was, physically, but mentally, I'd already won. He left first, but I stayed. My ribs ached, my palms stung, and my heartbeat wouldn't slow down. The rooftop smelled like rain and smoke. I stared at the place where he'd been standing, trying to convince myself it was just adrenaline. It wasn't. There was something else in my chest. Something restless and sharp. By lunch, the entire school knew. Ji-yoon fought Hanul. They said it was even. Apparently, he made the king fall. I ignored the noise, but the looks followed me everywhere. Respect, fear, amusement, and somewhere behind it all, anticipation. People loved watching power clash. Hanul passed me in the hall, bruised and smiling like we shared a private joke. He didn't speak, but his eyes said enough. This isn't over. That night, I found myself replaying the fight. His movements, his grin, the way he said interesting like he meant dangerous. It wasn't about winning anymore. It was about understanding him. I used to believe violence was chaos, something to analyze, predict, and control. But Hanul was chaos with logic buried underneath. He fought like instinct, but every strike had rhythm. Every glance, calculation. He was everything I tried to avoid becoming: loud, reckless, alive. And somehow I couldn't look away. Lying in bed, I pressed a hand to my bruised ribs and felt a strange satisfaction in the ache. Proof that I was real. Proof that something in me had cracked. The next morning, when I walked through the gates, people whispered the same word again. Rivals. Let them talk. Because somewhere deep down I already knew the truth. We weren't just rivals. We were two mirrors facing each other, each waiting to see who would break first. It started again the week after my fight with Hanul. You'd think beating the leader of a gang's second-in-command would buy me peace. Didn't. It just painted a bigger target on my back. They came at me in hallways, in stairwells, in the blind corners between classrooms. They were just bored, stupid, and looking for someone to prove themselves on. The first time I handled it. Quick calculations. 3 of them, 2 left-handed. 1 knife tucked badly under his jacket. A broken broom handle. A bucket of mop water. Gravity. I walked away bruised but upright. The second time, there were more. I saw it coming, always do, but I was tired. Tired of pretending I didn't notice the whispers. Tired of pretending I didn't care. They caught me behind the gym. 5 this time. Maybe 6. Hard to count when fists start flying. Still think you're smarter than everyone? One of them sneered. I don't think I know, I said, dodging a punch. That earned me another hit. I fought back, precise but outnumbered. My brain kept up, my body didn't. Someone grabbed my collar, slammed me against the wall. The world narrowed to breath and noise and the dull taste of copper. Then everything stopped. A voice cut through the chaos, rough, familiar. 5 on 1. Pathetic. Hanul stepped out from the end of the corridor, hands in his pockets, expression flat. The others hesitated. Everyone knew that tone. This isn't your business, the leader said. Hanul tilted his head. You're right, but unfair fights piss me off. Before they could respond, he moved. Quick, reckless, terrifyingly efficient. 1 swing, 1 kick, 1 kid down. I'd watched him fight before, but up close it was different. There was rhythm in his chaos, like he was built for it. I joined in because what else was I supposed to do? Stand there? Between my timing and his strength, the balance shifted fast. They scattered, limping and cursing, leaving behind a mess of trash and pride. The last one ran. The silence after was thick. I wiped blood from my lip. You didn't have to step in. Didn't do it for you, I hate cowards, he said. Good thing I'm not one. He smirked. You're something, all right? We stared at each other a beat too long. Then he shrugged, picked up my bag, and tossed it at me. You fight weird. You talk too much, I said. That made him laugh. Guess we're even. The night air smelled of rust and rain. The fight had ended 10 minutes ago, but the sound of fists still echoed somewhere in my skull. The others had scattered when the teacher's flashlights cut through the yard. Only Hanul and I stayed behind. He sat on the steps behind the gym, breathing like the world was made of smoke. Blood trailed down from his eyebrow, mixing with the rain. His knuckles were raw, skin split open. I stood there, trying to decide whether to speak or leave. He beat me to it. You're staring again, he said, voice rough. You're bleeding, I answered. He laughed softly. Nothing new. I pulled a packet of tissues from my pocket and crouched down. Hold still. He blinked at me, surprised. What, the glass student plays nurse now? Shut up. When I pressed the tissue to his cut, he hissed. Damn, that hurts. That's how disinfecting works. I didn't ask you to disinfect me. You didn't have to. He gave me a look. Half annoyance, half something else, and let me continue. The cut wasn't deep, but it bled stubbornly. I pressed harder, felt his pulse against my fingers. Warm. Too warm. You shouldn't fight alone, I said quietly. He smirked. You offering to tag along? I didn't say I want to, maybe. Wow. Didn't think you cared. I don't. The lie came too fast. He chuckled anyway. The sound low, almost fond. Cold-hearted as ever. Efficient, I corrected. Right? Efficiently patching me up in the dark. I didn't answer. The rain had turned from drizzle to steady sheets. I took off my jacket and dropped it over his shoulders. He froze, then looked at me like I'd done something impossible. You'll get soaked, he said. So will you. He stared at me for a long moment before shaking his head with a crooked smile. You're a weird one, Ji-yoon. I get that a lot. When I finished cleaning him up, his knuckles looked even worse. Scraped, purple, trembling slightly when he flexed them. I noticed the tremor before he did and caught his wrist. Stop moving. Doesn't hurt that bad. Your hand's shaking. He looked down, frown softening. Guess I overdid it. You always do. He didn't argue. Just watched me wrap his hand in the clean bandage I'd been carrying since the last fight. Habit. Preparation. Maybe care. Why do you fight? I asked. He exhaled through his nose. You ever had debt collectors knocking on your door at 3 in the morning? I said nothing. My brother owes the wrong people. I win fights, I get paid. Lose, they take it out on him. So, he lifted his wrapped hand like a shrug. I keep winning. There it was, the part of him nobody saw. Not just fists and fury, but duty. That kind of loyalty doesn't come from pride. It comes from desperation. You shouldn't have to do that alone, I said. He glanced up, eyes unreadable in the dark. You offering to help again? I'm offering a plan. He laughed, softer this time. Of course you are. We sat in silence for a while. Rain pattered against the roof. The world smelled of metal and wet asphalt. I realized I was still holding his wrist. When I let go, the absence felt heavier than the touch. Don't tell anyone about this, I said. About what? That the cold genius has a heart. About the bandages. He grinned. Sure thing, glass student. The nickname should have annoyed me. It didn't anymore. The next morning, whispers followed us again. But they were different now. Not fear, something closer to curiosity. We walked side by side through the hall. People moved out of the way like we were carrying a storm between us. At lunch, Hanul dropped his tray next to mine without asking. Your notes are good, he said through a mouthful of rice. I know. You could at least pretend to be humble. Why? He laughed, shaking his head. You really are impossible. Classmates at the next table stared openly. Someone whispered, Are they friends now? Another said, More like a team. I ignored them, but Hanul leaned back with a grin. Team sounds nice. I didn't agree to that. Too late. Everyone already thinks so. He wasn't wrong. By the end of the week, nobody picked fights with either of us. Together, we were the perfect deterrent. My strategies, his strength. Fists and logic. Fire and ice. Still, sometimes I caught him watching me when he thought I wasn't looking. Studying me the way I'd studied him on that first rooftop. It made my chest tighten. A strange pressure I didn't have a word for yet. One afternoon, we were walking home when he stopped suddenly. Thanks, he said. For what? For the other night. You didn't have to. I know. He smiled at that, small but real. You're a bad liar, you know? I looked away. So are you. He laughed again. That same reckless sound that always seemed to pull air from my lungs. The sun dipped behind the buildings, painting the street in orange light. Our shadows stretched side by side, the distance between them almost gone. I told myself it was just friendship, just logic, two people surviving in the same world. But when he brushed past me, shoulder warm against mine, my pulse betrayed me. By the time we reached the intersection, I realized the truth I didn't want to name. Caring about Hanul wasn't a choice I'd made. It had already happened, quietly, like bruises forming under the skin. And maybe that's what scared me most. Not the fights, not the gangs, but the fact that, for the first time, I didn't want to be made of glass anymore. The first sign something was wrong came when Hanul stopped laughing. For weeks, he'd been lighter. Still reckless, still bruised, but brighter somehow. Then one evening he showed up to class with a split lip he hadn't earned at school and eyes that wouldn't meet mine. I waited until the bell rang before asking. Who did that? No one, he said. Too fast. Liar. He sighed, rubbing his neck. It's complicated. I like complicated. Not this kind. He packed his bag, ignoring me, and walked out. I followed. The halls were empty, echoing. He finally stopped at the gate. They found me, he said. Who? The people I used to fight for. The boss wants me back. Says I owe him 3 more matches or the debt doubles. My stomach tightened. You're not going. He gave a bitter laugh. You think I get to choose? Yes, if you don't, They have nothing to control, I said. He looked at me like I was naive. You don't understand their kind. Then explain it. He didn't. Just walked away, shoulders tense, like he was trying to outrun gravity. I couldn't sit still that night. My mind kept looping through scenarios, probabilities, outcomes. Logic was supposed to help me feel safe, but every calculation ended the same way. Hanul bleeding somewhere I couldn't reach. So I did something stupid. I found them first. The warehouse district sat at the edge of the city, half abandoned, half owned by ghosts who still needed rent money. I waited until the streetlights thinned, then slipped inside one of the rusted doors. Voices echoed from below. The smell of oil and sweat clung to the air. Hanul stood in the ring, shirtless, fists taped, expression blank. Around him, men shouted bets. The boss watched from a metal chair, gold chain glinting. I didn't think. I just moved. Stop the match, I said, stepping out of the shadows. The room went quiet. The boss turned, eyes narrowing. And who the hell are you? A friend, I said. Then you better sit down before your friend gets hurt. He already is. Laughter rolled through the crowd. Hanul froze mid-stance. Ji-yoon, what are you doing here? Getting you out. Are you insane? Probably. The boss stood. Cute. You think you can walk in here and pull my fighter? He owes me blood. He owes you nothing, I said. You make money off him, just because his brother owe you right. He smirked. You planning to negotiate? I already did. I tossed a folded envelope onto the floor. Cash I'd scraped together selling half my stuff online. That covers his debt. The boss kicked it open, laughed. This? You think this buys freedom? No, but it buys time, I said. Something in my voice must have landed because he waved a hand. Fine. One more fight. He wins, he walks. He loses. I get both of you. Hanul turned on me. What the hell were you thinking? That you'd win, I said. His jaw clenched. You don't know how this works, Ji-yoon. Then teach me. He stared at me a second too long, then stepped back into the ring. The fight was brutal. His opponent was bigger, slower, but heavier. Each hit sounded like a hammer on wet stone. I counted every second, every stagger, trying to calculate an ending that didn't end with an ambulance. When Hanul finally dropped the guy with a knee to the gut and a right hook, the room erupted. The boss didn't clap. He just nodded once. Fine. Debt's cleared. I exhaled for the first time in minutes. Then Hanul turned to me, blood running down his chin, eyes blazing. You shouldn't have come. You're welcome. He jumped down from the ring, grabbed my arm, and dragged me outside. The night air hit like a slap. You could have died in there, he snapped. So could you. That's different. How? Because it's me. He shoved me against the wall, breath hot with anger and exhaustion. You think you can fix everything with plans and cash? You don't know what these people do. You don't know what I've done. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Because I didn't know the answer, only that every time he walked into danger, something inside me followed. He saw it in my silence. Something snapped in him, fear, rage, both. He grabbed my collar, pulled me forward, and kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't anything like the quiet moments we'd shared. It was fire and panic and too much breath between teeth. For a second, I forgot the world. Forgot logic, the gangs, the blood, everything but him. Then reality crashed back. I shoved him away. He stumbled back, eyes wide. Ji-yoon. Don't, I said. My voice shook. He stared at me like I'd just cut something vital. Then he turned, punched the wall hard enough to split his knuckles again, and walked off into the dark. I stayed where I was, shaking, tasting metal and regret. The rain started thin, cold, merciless. I wanted to believe it was over, that I'd done the smart thing by pushing him away. But as the streetlights blurred through the water, I realized I wasn't thinking in equations anymore. I was thinking about his mouth on mine, about the tremor in his hands when he let go. And for the first time since I could remember, logic offered no way out. It had been 3 days since the kiss, and Hanul hadn't shown up to class. 3 days of silence. 3 days of people asking where the street king went. 3 days of me pretending I didn't care while checking every message board, every alley rumor, every sound that might be him. When you're used to calculation, uncertainty feels like suffocation. On the 4th night, I found out. Sujin cornered me outside the convenience store. "You should stay home tonight," he said, voice low. "Why?" "There's a fight. Not one of the school ones, real. Down by the river warehouses." My stomach turned cold. "Who?" He hesitated. "Kong Hanul." Before he finished, I was already running. The docks were half lit, wind cutting through broken fences. From a distance, I heard the sound. Flesh against flesh, the thud of bodies hitting concrete, men shouting numbers and names. I slipped through a gap in the fence. Hanul was there in the center, fighting like he meant to die doing it. His fists were blurs, his breath a ragged snarl. Every hit he took, he gave back harder. The gang boss from before leaned against a crate, smoking, watching like he owned the night. It hit me then. Hanul had gone back not for money, not pride, but to end it, to buy peace with pain. "Idiot," I whispered. "I should have stayed hidden." I didn't. When one of the fighters broke from the ring and staggered toward me, I grabbed the nearest metal rod and swung. He dropped. The sound echoed. Heads turned. "Ji-yoon." Hanul's voice cracked through the noise. "What the hell are you doing here?" he shouted. "Returning the favor," I said. "Get out." "No." He cursed, dodged a punch, and drove his opponent to the ground. Then everything erupted, dozens of fists, too many faces, chaos swallowing logic whole. Someone grabbed me from behind. I hit back, elbows, knees, anything. Hanul pushed through the crowd, eyes wild. He reached me just as another man raised a bat. Hanul took the swing meant for me. The crack echoed like thunder. He went down on one knee, blood streaming from his temple. I caught him before he fell completely. "You stupid, why?" He smiled, dazed. "Told you to leave." The boss's voice cut through the rain. Touching. "But he's done." I stood, shaking, blocking Hanul with my body. "It's over. He won." "No, he loses. You both do." The boss said. Something inside me snapped. I'd always believed in logic, in patterns that could be solved. But nothing about this could be reasoned with. So I did what Hanul would do. I hit first. The rod connected with the boss's shoulder. His gun clattered away. Then the others lunged. But some of Hanul's old allies, boys from the underground, stepped between us, yelling that enough was enough. The chaos twisted, broke, scattered. When the last man ran, I dropped the weapon. My hands shook so hard I couldn't unclench them. Hanul was still on the ground, breathing shallow. I knelt beside him. "Stay awake." He laughed weakly. "You fight ugly." "Shut up. Didn't think you'd actually come." "I shouldn't have had to." "Always so logical." "Guess we both lost tonight," he murmured. I pressed my hands against the bleeding side of his head. "No. You saved me." He blinked up at me, eyes unfocused but soft. "Worth it." "Don't say that." "Can't help it. You were the only good thing left, Ji-yoon." His voice broke on the edges. Something in me cracked clean through. "I can't lose you," I whispered. He tried to smile. "Then don't." Sirens sounded somewhere far off. Somebody must have called them. I pulled him closer, jacket soaking red and rain black. His head fell against my shoulder, heavy and warm and terrifying. "Stay with me. You hear me?" I said. He nodded faintly. "You're crying." "I'm not." "Liar." The ambulance lights cut through the fog a minute later, washing everything in blue and white. They took him from my arms. The warmth went with him. At the hospital, they wouldn't let me in at first. "Family only," the nurse said. "He doesn't have any," I said. And maybe it was the way my voice cracked that made her wave me through. I sat by his bed until morning, counting every rise and fall of his chest. The machines hummed like distant thunder. His face looked different without the fight, still almost peaceful. I should have been planning what to do next. Instead, I just stared. I'd always thought love was a distraction, a weakness, something illogical. But looking at him, battered, breathing, alive because he'd stepped between me and a bat, I understood it wasn't weakness. It was gravity. I couldn't stop being pulled. When the sun broke through the blinds, I finally whispered the truth, just once, into the quiet room. I love you, Hanul. He didn't wake, but his fingers twitched, like maybe he'd heard. That night, when I left the hospital, the streets were empty, washed clean by rain. The city felt different, colder, but clearer. I'd spent years building walls made of glass, sharp enough to keep people out. And somehow, in one night of blood and chaos, Hanul had shattered them all. Hospitals always smell the same. Antiseptic, steel, and something faintly sweet that's supposed to mean clean, but really just means not dead yet. Hanul's been here for 4 days. The doctors say he's lucky. I don't think luck has anything to do with it. It was stubbornness, his mostly. The kind that keeps people breathing when they shouldn't. I come every day. I tell myself it's just to check if he's awake, just to make sure he hasn't slipped backward. But the truth is, I don't know how to exist anywhere else right now. The first 2 days, he doesn't move. Machines breathe for him. I sit in the plastic chair and pretend to read the same page of a book until the words blur. Sometimes I talk about school, about how the bullies shut up after what happened, about how quiet everything feels without him filling the hallways with noise. He doesn't answer, obviously. Still, it feels wrong not to speak. By the 3rd day, he starts twitching, a frown, a shift, a sound caught in his throat. I sit up so fast the chair screeches. Hanul. Nothing. Just another twitch. The nurse tells me to relax, that it's a good sign. I try. I fail. He wakes on the 4th morning. I'm half asleep, forehead against my arm, when I hear his voice. Hoarse, low, but there. Ji-yoon. It's not loud, but it cuts through everything. I look up so fast my neck pops. His eyes are open, unfocused, confused. You're awake, I manage. He blinks slowly. Hospital. Yeah. He winces. Hurts. Good. Means you're alive. He tries to laugh but ends up coughing. I pour water, hold it to his lips. His fingers brush mine and it feels like a punch to the chest. How long? He asks. 4 days. He stares at the ceiling. Could have been worse. You almost didn't make it. He smirks weakly. But I did. I want to yell at him for being proud of that, but the words stick. After a while, he says, You came back. Someone had to make sure you didn't do something stupid again. That's not what I meant. His eyes find mine. The room suddenly feels too small, too bright. Why'd you come back for me? He asks quietly. My throat closes. There it is, the question I've been avoiding since the night everything fell apart. Because I couldn't not. Because every part of me moves toward you, even when I know it'll hurt. But all that comes out is, because you're mine too. The silence afterward stretches, electric and terrifying. He looks at me like I've just said something holy. Yours, huh? His voice shakes with a laugh that isn't really a laugh. You mean that? I swallow hard. Yeah, I mean it. He studies me for a long time, then says, Come closer. I hesitate. You should rest. Come here. He repeats softer, and it's not a demand. It's a plea. So I do. He reaches up, fingers trembling, and hooks them behind my neck. I can smell the disinfectant, the faint trace of blood, the warmth of him under all that fragility. When he pulls me down, it isn't like the first time, no anger, no panic. Just a quiet certainty that we've both run out of ways to lie. The kiss is slow, tentative, real. It's not perfect. His lip is split, my hands are shaking, but it's alive. It's us. When we part, he's smiling. Guess that answers it. I can't speak. I just nod because if I open my mouth, I'll break. He falls asleep again not long after, exhausted from even that much effort. I sit there, watching the rise and fall of his chest, tracing the rhythm like a lifeline. Outside the window, the world keeps moving, cars, clouds, people who don't know that a whole universe just shifted in a small hospital room. I rest my hand over his, careful of the bandages. His skin is warm, solid, alive. And for the first time in years, the noise in my head goes quiet. Later that night, the nurse brings extra blankets and tells me visiting hours are over. I nod, wait until she leaves, then pull the blanket over him anyway. Don't make that face, you'd do the same. I whisper. He doesn't answer, of course, but somehow I know he hears me. I stay until the lights dim to half glow, until the city outside turns silver with rain again. When I finally stand, I touch the edge of his hair. The smallest, most reckless thing I've ever done. Don't make me say it twice. You're mine too, remember? I murmur. He stirs just enough to catch the sound, and the faintest smile curves his lips. That's enough. For tonight, that's enough. Hanul got discharged on a Wednesday. The sky looked washed out, the color of old paper, like even the weather was too tired to care. He limped out of the hospital with a half-healed bruise on his jaw and a grin he didn't deserve. He carried his bag. He called me Mom twice until I threatened to leave him on the curb. Should have been over. The debts, the fighting, the blood. But nothing that easy ever stays easy. The first message came that night. A photo slipped into my locker. A blurry shot of Hanul and me outside the hospital. A red circle drawn around me with the words next scrawled underneath. I showed him. He went still, jaw tightening. They wouldn't. They already did, I said. He crumpled the paper in his fist. Then we finished this. I spent that night hunched over my desk, a map of the district spread out, marking routes and hideouts. Every name I'd heard whispered through the school hallways. Logic was my weapon. Patterns were my comfort. Hanul leaned against the wall, watching me work. You planning to pass them an essay? Planning to make sure we survive, I said. He smiled, small but real. That's why I keep you around. I didn't look up. You keep me around because no one else can stand you. Maybe, but you like me anyway, he said. Silence hung there. Not awkward anymore, just steady. By the next evening, we knew where they were. The same abandoned warehouse where it all began. Poetic in a stupid way. I told him the plan twice. He only half listened. When we got there, the air was heavy with the smell of rust and oil. Shadows moved behind broken windows. I could feel them before I saw them. Stay close, he said. You stay smart. Can't promise that. I sighed. Didn't think so. They came out of the dark in waves, 10, maybe 12. Masks, bats, knives. I wasn't a fighter, but I wasn't a coward either. Hanul moved first, fast and violent, the kind of beautiful that's only born from chaos. Every punch was a statement. You don't touch what's mine. I stayed low, using the maze of crates like a chessboard, tipping barrels, cutting lights, forcing them into corners where Hanul could finish them. Left, I shouted. He turned just in time to block a swing, drove his elbow back into someone's ribs. See? We make a good team. He yelled between hits. Focus. Always so serious, Ji-yoon. A bat whistled past my ear. I ducked, grabbed a chain from the ground, swung it into someone's leg. They went down hard. My pulse roared in my ears. Not fear anymore, just clarity. The boss stepped out from the far end of the room, the gold chain gleaming even in the dark. He looked almost bored. You kids never learn, he said. Neither do you, I replied. He raised a gun. My stomach turned to ice. But Hanul was faster. He lunged, knocking the weapon aside as it fired. The sound was deafening. Sparks rained down from the rafters where the bullet hit metal. They struggled. The gun skidded toward me. I didn't think. I kicked it into the shadows out of reach. The boss snarled, swinging a knife now. Hanul dodged one strike but not the next. The blade sliced across his shoulder. Hanul! I'm fine, he barked, even as blood soaked through his shirt. He wasn't fine, but he didn't stop. He drove his fist into the man's face, once, twice, until the knife clattered away. Then he stood there, panting, trembling, but victorious. The boss coughed blood, spat on the floor. You think this ends with me? No, it ends because of you, I said. Hanul grabbed my hand, pulled me toward the exit as sirens wailed in the distance. Someone must have called the cops this time. We didn't run. We just walked, shoulders touching, leaving the broken glass and chaos behind us. Outside, the night air felt different. Cold, clean, almost kind. Hanul slumped against the wall, breathing hard. I pressed my jacket against his shoulder wound. "Stupid, you're bleeding all over my clothes," I muttered. He laughed, low and raw. "You're still here, so it's fine. Couldn't exactly leave, could I? Didn't stop you last time. That was different." "Yeah, this time you said I was yours," he said softly. I froze, then looked at him. His face was pale, streaked with dirt and sweat, but his eyes were alive, bright and real. "Still true?" he asked. "Always," I said. He smiled, small but certain, and leaned his head against my shoulder. We stayed there until dawn, two idiots bleeding quietly while the city woke up around us. When the first light hit, he said, "We did it, right?" "For now," I said. "That's good enough." He reached for my hand, our fingers locking together, rough, bruised, real. It wasn't the kind of victory people wrote stories about. There was no glory, no neat ending. Just two boys who refused to die the way the world wanted them to. And maybe that was enough. When we finally started walking home, the streets were empty, the air sharp with morning. Every step hurt, but I didn't care. For the first time, it didn't feel like we were running from something. It felt like we were walking toward it, together. It's strange how silence can be louder than noise. For months, the city has been quiet. No rumors, no fights in the schoolyard, no whispers about gangs and alleyways. Just the ordinary sound of life moving on. For a while, I didn't trust it. I kept waiting for the next hit, the next threat. But nothing came. Maybe the people who wanted us gone finally got tired. Maybe they just realized we wouldn't fall. Either way, the peace feels earned. Hanul calls it boring. He's back in class now. His shoulder still aches when it rains, but he's too stubborn to rest. He jokes with people, actually raises his hand sometimes. Everyone watches him differently, not with fear anymore, but something like respect. And me? I guess I smile more now. It feels weird at first, like using muscles I forgot existed. We still sit at the back of the room, though. Old habits. Sometimes, when the teacher turns to write on the board, Hanul leans over and mutters things just loud enough for me to hear. Nonsense, mostly. Dumb jokes. But they make me laugh before I can stop myself. It's normal, almost painfully so. After school, we walk home together. Always the long way, through the narrow streets, past the convenience store, across the cracked bridge where the lights flicker but never go out. Hanul says it's because the view's better. I think he just likes pretending we have nowhere else to be. The first time he reached for my hand in public, I almost pulled away. Not because I didn't want it, but because I wasn't used to being seen like that. He just looked at me and said, "We fought a whole gang. You're telling me you're scared of holding hands?" I couldn't argue with that logic. Now it's habit. His hand finds mine without thinking, fingers locking like it's the most natural thing in the world. Sometimes I catch people staring. We ignore them. We've been through worse. There are scars, of course. Some visible, most not. He has one along his temple from that night by the river. I have one across my palm where the chain slipped and tore skin. We joke about comparing them like trophies, but the truth is, they remind us of everything we refuse to lose. Healing isn't neat. It's quiet, messy, uneven. Some nights, Hanul wakes up sweating, breathing too fast. Other nights, I can't stop replaying the sound of sirens in my head. We don't talk much about it. We just stay close until it passes. Sometimes that's enough. The spring now. The city smells like rain and thawed concrete. The cherry trees by the school gates are blooming again, pale petals sticking to our shoes. When classes end, Hanul stretches, groaning dramatically. Another day of academic excellence. Your definition of excellence still needs work, I say. He grins. Yeah, but I'm trying. For you. Don't use me as an excuse for your grades. Too late. Hanul stops beside me, hands shoved in his pockets. When we first met, you looked like you wanted to punch me. I did, I admit. And now, I glance at him, at the faint scar along his jaw, at the way his hair falls over his eyes, at the small, stubborn smile that still means too much. Now I still want to, just for different reasons, I say. He laughs, the sound low and easy. You're terrible at being romantic. I'm consistent. He steps closer, close enough that I can smell the faint trace of smoke from the convenience store cigarettes he swears he doesn't buy. His fingers brush mine, then tangle fully. Guess that's what I like about you, he says. Just that. He leans in, forehead resting against mine. Among other things, the city hums around us. Cars, distant chatter, a stray cat darting between trash cans. But it all feels quiet somehow, like the world finally stopped spinning long enough for us to breathe. People talk about happy endings like they're a final scene, a full stop. But I think ours is more like a comma, a pause before whatever comes next. We're still scarred, still figuring it out, still a little broken in ways that don't always show. But we're alive. We're together. And for me, that's enough. As we walk out of the alley, the last bit of sunset catches on the wet pavement, turning it gold for a second. Hanul looks over his shoulder, grinning. Hey, genius, race you home, he says. Before I can answer, he's already running. I sigh, then run after him. His laughter bounces off the walls, wild and bright, pulling me forward until I catch his wrist. Both of us breathless and laughing like idiots in the half-light. The world keeps moving. The past stays where it belongs. And when our hands find each other again, knuckles white, grip steady, it feels less like holding on and more like coming home.